been instances in our government, there's been instances privately, where effectively what their promise is to us is that whatever they do with our data, they won't do anything to harm or hurt us, an individual or an entity, has been proven wrong. Not just cybersecurity and don't let someone phish us and all that sort of stuff, but there's now evolving privacy acts and all sort of implications for directors of organizations and senior people, where if something was to happen through one of these tools where an employee just goes, I don't care about your policy, I don't care about your safety demands, I'm just going to feed a bunch of stuff in here because it's going to help me, that impact flows on much higher up the chain.
That is the buzzword at the moment in tech from a business perspective. And I found it extremely interesting. And I thought my job and my role in my industry is to share as much information I can to prime business owners to sort of be able to navigate what's really moving quickly at the moment. And right now that's AI. And to be able to help them as much as I can to make the right decisions, right? And cybersecurity and all those words we've heard over the few years and are still prevalent, but AI has really hit the forefront in that regard. And I thought this would be a great opportunity to speak to Josh, and because I feel that what Josh is doing behind the scenes is going to have quite a great impact and doing things very differently. And Josh will go into a bit more of that in a moment to help Perth businesses, but obviously not just Perth, but that's probably with the starting point, wouldn't it be, Josh? So, Josh, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you and where you've come from and the organisation you represent.
Cool. Yeah. So Howll is our business. My personal journey has been about almost 15 years in the consulting capacity, growth focused, helping organisations in a variety of different ways, whether it's the planning piece. I also work one-on-one in a coaching capacity with business owners, and have always been focused on operational, get in the weeds, understand things, make things better, all that sort of fun stuff. I've had a few side quests on my journey, a film and TV production company. We have a SaaS product that's a part of some of our consulting work. I like shiny things. I also like emerging on new tech. And so when the kind of murmurs were happening, 2020 to 22, I think this was kind of really starting to become a thing. Started to appreciate the power it has, the power it can have, obviously use it a lot in our work. And then started to understand the dynamic around what's being offered to the market, and I guess who owned or controlled a lot of that. And that really is what triggered us getting to where we are today with our product, which is trying to give a business complete ownership and control over their AI. Again, that term, it is a buzzword. I don't think what we've got right now is AI. It's large language models being pointed in specific directions. But yeah, for the purposes of this, we're basically building an enterprise AI platform at Howll that can be rolled out to integrate with how you already do business and give you full control over how you are supported and your people are supported by this technology.
Great. And in regards to a specific problem that you're targeting with Howll, what inspired you to create what you're putting together now?
Yeah.
What was the trigger? What's inspired you to go for what where you're heading in terms of your product and your service?
I have trust issues. Largely on the back of the rise of social media, I guess, because we were all served these amazing, powerful products for free. And so what does that mean? We're actually the product, right? So there's that sort of data exercise there where a whole bunch of, actually not a whole bunch, a small bunch of humans created these products that just ingested everything we ever do in our lives to serve back to us things that they think we need. And so we've gone through that as sort of a personal data reflection. And then AI, as we currently understand it, was effectively trained on the entirety of this information and then pretty much the world's knowledge. And all of a sudden, we've got this thing coming to us in our phones or computers for free. And we've got this amazing, powerful technology again for free. What's the catch? So we were kind of looking at the evolution of this and going, well, those that are succeeding are kind of completely in control of their large language models. They're completely in control of the training and of the safety and all that sort of fun stuff. For the benefit of their user. But that doesn't necessarily help when you start to translate this to a business situation, because we saw the evolution of ChatGPT, Claude, etc., as being something that benefits those organizations and doesn't necessarily benefit the end user being a business, or starts to gain from their access to that organization. So the privacy piece was probably the first thing, to summarize that question in a sentence. Privacy was a big focus for us. And we're now getting to the point where what we saw is unfolding. So you've got ChatGPT, et cetera, wanting to integrate with your CRMs and HubSpot, sort of as an example, with Dropbox, or Google saying, here, use our AI. It's going to look at everything and give you a great outcome from a report, X or Y. And we kind of foresaw that this would be beneficial to a lot of people, but would be impossible for others to leverage because they've got IP risks, they've got privacy risks, all these sorts of things attached to how they do business. So that was the rationale behind starting the journey to create what is in existence now.
So I'm hearing a lot about security, right?
Yeah.
So how is it, very high level, like how is it that you actually are different from the security perspective?
Yeah.
You know, you've got obviously everything we're talking to from AI perspective is all cloud driven by the big guys, Google, your Amazons, not Amazons, but they've got different AI levels in different areas. Your Microsofts, your open AIs. So how is Howll different in terms of being able to give you a bit more of a security piece?
The key piece is on-premise. So we are challenging the cloud exercise, which everyone has now progressed towards or is involved within, by challenging our customers to actually process on-prem. So we have a box or the ability to scale to whatever infrastructure is required, and effectively deploy open source large language models, so those that you can actually run in a local environment, and provide that in a very secure way to your entire organization. And so the key distinction here, for those that may not grasp that, is whatever happens in that environment is not leaving that environment from the perspective of training someone's model or pushing sensitive data to a server you don't control, etc. So that on-prem piece is kind of our big factor. And then we have kind of the supplementary layers around that, which are, the contribution to complete control over who uses it. So the user piece, where the data sits, knowledge base accuracy, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, the big thing for us, which is a challenge for a lot of people to grasp because we've all moved well away from that, is actually, on-premise processing.
Great. And when you think about on-premise AI, I guess why is it the right time now for businesses to consider looking at that service stack that you have or offering compared to, say, the typical cloud-based products? Why is now a good time to be considering it or looking into it?
I actually think it's not necessarily just that on-prem piece. I think it's the complete control over how these tools integrate into how we run our businesses. So at the moment, my best example for this is probably an admin person who identifies 2 or 3 like $15 a month agents, which are basically a wrapper around ChatGPT. One of them is going to sit in their inbox, read their emails and draft them for them. The other might be responding to this report for them every month by consolidating information. And so that individual has been given the freedom to go and implement a bunch of things that are going to improve their workflow. But if that individual decides to leave, that knowledge most of the time will just go with them. And so you're back at square one unless you have rigorously mapped that process, which most businesses don't have the time or energy to do. And so you are going to start to see impacts when a human leaves or when one of those wrappers gets bought out by ChatGPT and they want to switch it off. And so you've got to go and find something else. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that's going to evolve whereby if you don't control how this stuff is being integrated into your organization, there will be significant impact in the future. So that's probably the key thing for us. We have the ability to identify quick wins, implement against those quick wins, and then start to scale.
So in that regard, what would you say is an example of where businesses have just taken on the tools? Because I think anyone can sort of say they've used an AI tool, like in the last, anyone in business has used some form of AI, whether it be through your social media apps or whether it be at a business level with OpenAI or Microsoft. People are jumping into it. It's easier to access, etc. What have you seen organizations, let's stick with organizations from a commercial sense, where have you seen that go wrong from a security standpoint? Yeah,
I mean, there's multiple cases, public cases, where information has been fed in and has been found out outside of that organization, and someone's been able to connect the dots. There's been instances in our government, there's been instances privately, where effectively what their promise is to us is that whatever they do with our data, they won't do anything to harm or hurt us, an individual or an entity, has been proven wrong. And so first and foremost, there's a bunch of risks attached, in my view, from an organization perspective, to how we treat our data, not just cybersecurity and don't let someone phish us and all that sort of stuff, but there's now evolving privacy acts and all sort of implications for directors of organizations and senior people, where if something was to happen through one of these tools where an employee just goes, I don't care. I don't care about your policy. I don't care about your safety demands. I'm just going to feed a bunch of stuff in here because it's going to help me. That impact flows on much higher up the chain.
So what's the impact? So you've obviously seen the data becomes a bit more public or used by the model by other companies, your competition,
100%,
or it could be regulators saying 100%, your data go there.
100%.
I've also seen that where, companies are unfortunately not knowing any differently, thinking everything's private, uploaded templates of intellectual property of theirs, not really considering that you're training your opposition, right?
100%.
Because effectively they're using the same tools, asking the same questions, and all of a sudden the large language model, OpenAI or whatever, is actually now giving you answers from the data you've uploaded. So now you're losing a competitive edge. But then there's also the legal side of it. Have you seen any cases so far or things that are in progress right now from a legal perspective when it comes to AI?
Not in a sense that I think is going to be enough of a wake up for people. I think we are still early.
Yeah, regulation is one of those things, right?
I think it is coming. I think we will see in this country and in a lot of the Western world an attempt to significantly regulate. And that's another threat, whereby if you start over the next 6 months to embed ChatGPT into your business, and then all of a sudden our government goes, wait a sec, that's a huge threat to employment in this country because it's replacing people. They go, you have to switch that off. What are you going to do? GDPR is the best example of this, right? In the EU, with the GDPR rules, you can't roll a product out, or they're just not available in a lot of these environments because of those restrictions, which are set by regulation. So again, if you don't control that, you're plugged into someone else's system, and then all of a sudden the government puts the foot down. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. Bigger risk probably in that sense.
Yeah, there's also that retrospective outlook, right? Like what we do now, even though it might not be law or may not be the issue now, it's always, if it was found out to be that you were publicly leaking that information indirectly or unintentionally, let's say, there could still be some recourse there for
100%.
Businesses or individuals in that regard.
Yep, 100%.
So what would you say what sort of market validation have you seen for your product, let's say for local companies or any other companies you work with? What sort of verticals have you worked with?
Yeah, so we are getting a lot clearer on who we want to be working with. Our product has an implementation stage, a proving phase with everyone that we work with. And so we are targeting the medium to large SME market. And we're currently talking to financial services, healthcare, mining and supporting industries, a whole raft of different organizations. But the fundamental repeating factor is most of them have manual processes that they have not yet been able to either automate, improve on, or address with other solutions. And so whilst I talk about, just the typical input and output response piece with, say, ChatGPT, yes, we deploy a local GPT environment where people can do that. But what technology, as it's currently evolving, is able to do is now take the brain that is a large language model and focus it on a task. So this is that agent or agentic AI that we're starting to hear about. And so you, in the world we're living in, go, cool, how do you do customer onboarding? How do you generate the month-end reporting? What systems are involved? What people are involved? That is a repeating process. Yeah. So for us, it's let's identify a couple of these repeating processes that are cumbersome and have double handling, whatever it might be. And let's see if we can get a large language model to step in at 1, 2, 3 steps on a 15-step process. And that just might be passing data from a spreadsheet or a client form into a system. But a human is currently doing that over and over and over again. And a business goes, well, I'd love to deploy that human on a task that actually brings more value to my client or whatever it might be. So at the core of what we're offering, it is much more than input, output, ChatGPT conversations. It's actually the deployment of agents across your existing processes to improve them significantly. And so, yeah, that's where for us, we're sort of looking at the mid-market SME world, I'd say, as the best spot for us to have like impact, but also get the investment and the backing from a client because it is still a little involved.
Yeah, that's right. And I'd imagine that if a client has heavy, strict regulation around data compliance, they might need ISO 27001 per se. They could be working with defense, those sorts of companies. A product like yours probably makes a little bit more sense than having an open large language model on the internet. 100%.
And also anyone doing R&D activity, like we're working closely with one of the biggest providers of that sort of support piece. So the guys that do the R&D claims for organizations, And their view is if a business is using any public AI, there's no novelty anymore. There's no proof that what you're doing is truly novel. And so you should be deploying locally, you should be operating locally.
Right.
And yes, you can use a large language model, but it has to be completely contained. So then you are actually in control of what the impact is. So yeah, that's the key kind of piece I think.
And let's say a defense contractor or someone at defense, but let's call it a contractor.
Yeah.
Wants to have a chat to you about your services. What would the journey roughly look like high level? Like they obviously would need to engage you to have initial discussions, and let's say they tick the boxes for you. How do you then support them to get the most out of your service?
Yeah, so we have a kind of an initial pilot testing exercise in most circumstances at the moment, because we want to zoom in, identify what that quick win might be, and then hopefully show them an outcome relatively effectively. It's not about let's sit for 6 months and understand all your business processes and do a big report and maybe arrive at an outcome. It's let's zoom in because you understand how you do business and it's working, and let's go, cool. Those 2 or 3 steps in that 15-step repeating process that you do a lot, we can actually jump in and start working with you on. And so then it's the evolution of that journey. So we are a product, we are a platform, but there is always going to be a guided process. At the moment, that is people. That's guided by a kind of a consulting hat, and our opportunity and our intent is to scale with consulting partnerships. But we're also evolving an AI consultant effectively, which allows the business or that expert, so the admin person, the salesperson, the person who is an expert at that process, to work with the tool to then generate the agents that plug in and work with them as well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And in terms of like the future, the next 2 to 3 years, what are you seeing? What are you looking at when you look out the window? You go, where do you think we're heading when it comes to AI? Like, what are your thoughts? Are you thinking it's going to be better or worse in terms of when it comes to security? Because I know how much you love security.
Yeah, great question.
Or lack thereof.
if we stay in the environment that we're playing, which is just kind of in business, I think it is inevitable that every organization on this planet will be utilizing this technology in some way to improve on how they serve their customer. Right. I think the ones that win are the ones that appreciate the need for it earliest, but also invest time and patience in how they implement it. I think many will attempt quick win stuff, and I think that will backfire faster than probably any prior technology revolution ever has. Those that take time, those that apply it with strategy in an organizational sense, will be the winners.
Yeah.
You, at the moment, if you run a business and you are not looking at how this can integrate in your business, will be challenged by an upstart who has used this from the beginning. And so that's the other big thing, I think, 2 to 3 years out looking. You'll see major SaaS platforms challenged. You'll see organizations that are hyper process intensive challenged because someone has gone, wait a second, I was the expert in business X at that process. I've now jumped out, or I've been let go because that's happening lots right now. I've used AI to build an application that now solves that particular process, and I've sold it back into a business to replace everybody else.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so there's this fascinating opportunity for us to evolve there. And then that's the organizational sense. I'll comment on AI as a whole.
Yeah.
I am an optimist eternally and always have been. I think this has the ability as a technology to enable our intelligence and amplify it more so than anything that's ever existed in the world. I made the comment before we started recording about how my 6-year-old son is learning piano using AI, and that's it. He's never had a lesson from anything else. He will, a human will help him at one point, but a 6-year-old to sit at a piano for half an hour and actually do the exercises. He also has dyspraxia, which means he has fine motor challenges. It's unheard of. It doesn't make sense. But that's the thing that has engaged him to get that progress. So for me, it's that ability for us to amplify our intelligence, enable us to achieve more, and it will be a fascinating thing for humans.
And when it comes to a business considering, or any organization considering adopting AI of any level, let's just call it even cloud, let's say, what are the things that, before jumping on that bandwagon and using it internally in your business, whether it be through your service, whether it be through a cloud service, what are the let's say 3 things they really need to be considering, and maybe additional to that or as part of that, what would there be the things that they need to be putting in place internally before they start switching these things on?
So safety is first. And in my view, it's safety not as dictated by the marketplace. It's safety as it relates to your organization. And it's because you may have IP that you need to protect. It may have client data you need to protect. So it's an appreciation of that across the business. And then, whether it be policy or whatever it might be that sits around that. So it's that kind of exercise which has a governance element, all that sort of fun. So that's first. Data is one factor. I think we're starting to see the evolution of these tools and their ability to analyze or handle shit data. Usually it's been shit in, shit out. They're getting a bit better at that. But I think...
So what would it not, if it wasn't shit, what would it look like?
Well, for me, it's structured. Yeah,
I agree.
It's structured, and so that might be, at the moment there isn't a form, but let's build a form because the form's going to get us an outcome faster or better, or actually help the large language model get context faster or better.
Right.
Yeah. The data piece, and then my fundamental thing is AI as a teammate. So to not look at it as a replacement tool for humans. It will be in some cases. Yeah, that's inevitable. But I think in an organization, if you have a perspective on it as a teammate for your people, you will have much faster adoption, much better improvement, all that sort of fun stuff. So they're kind of my fun.
So that would be like the agentic AI, where it sort of sits beside you in a role and supports you to go work faster, work smarter, more efficiently, so you can work above the line.
100%.
What's like one, like I know this would apply. Me personally, I can already think about which businesses and which roles in a business. If I look at an org chart, I can go, oh my God, we can have an AI for that, right?
Yeah.
So if we look at any business of any size, like what would be a key role where you think agentic AI straight away you can turn on with some obviously structured data and compliance first?
Yep.
What would be a quick win, and which role do you think you could support pretty quickly with your service or any AI service?
So for me, I think the onboarding exercise is a given. I think every business has to do it. You have to get a client onboarded. Typically, it has to be across multiple systems, or you need to update multiple people. It's the beginning of that broader process to serve your customer, the customer journey, right? That we all go on.
Success platform, right? Just to make sure you have customers.
Yeah, and most of the offerings in the market at the moment are the loudspeaker before that step. So you can get Podium or some of these big sales tools that are going to be like, yep, cool, we'll automate your posts and we'll do this and we'll do that. Great, we've just won that customer. Now what? And so many conversations that we're having, that is a hilarious step that you go, wait, you're that big as an organization and that still takes you like 2.5 weeks? Yeah.
So like a manual process, different people in the business, data entry, etc. Very methodical.
It is. It's methodical and repeating. Yeah. So for us, when I go, what can an agent do? It's not take the entirety of that over. It's can it listen to an inbox? Can it see when the form lands from a customer? Can it then move the data from that form into your CRM, into your job management system, and all of that happens automatically. And the person who was previously doing that is just making sure the customer's happy, right? And then they're also sitting above that and able to manage that through, and there's an approval step, an approval step, an approval step. That's how it should be working.
Okay. I also think to supplement that, if you look at like admin in any business, they always need more. As you scale, you always need more admin because you need more resourcing, more people, more effort to support the admin. So you get another admin, you get another admin, you get another admin.
Yep.
I've been through this process before, and I've considered VAs, etc. And what I've found is before you hire anyone else, you've got to create systems, processes, documentation, standard procedures, because you need to teach the VA how to do the work.
Yep.
To do the same level of work the admin does, right? Would you say that, with that information, data structured in from the main primary admin, before considering a VA, would it certainly be an option to consider agentic AI to support the admin talent that you already have?
100%. Yeah, I think that is a big challenge that lots of the markets that serve us through VA services are starting to see.
Yeah.
You're already seeing it talked about a lot out of India or a lot out of parts of Asia, where they're sitting back and going, oh, wait a second. That's what we're currently doing. So now what are we going to do? And a lot of them are actually building some of these tools because they are the experts in that process, right? So this is the
it's a mindset shift, right? Like if you think of it from if you're a business owner in charge of strategy and people and roles, it could be that, right? Rather than just keep scaling the business in terms of people, it'll be more about growing the business in terms of growing your team. But that doesn't necessarily mean bums on seats anymore. It's about enabling your existing team members to do more with less, with support.
Correct. 100%.
Like that sort of that wingman going through the process and
100%.
knows the standard data, knows the structures, like you said, very structured data in, data out. But before you do that, the whole compliance piece needs to be in place, frameworks around that, and making sure you know what the security appetite is around data sharing and knowledge between different identities. Well, outside of that, Is there any key takeaways or anything else you'd like to share with?
I mean, if you are not using these tools, begin.
Yeah.
That is it. That is all I sort of challenge someone to do. You know,
Yeah.
like if you are not using, and I would suggest using multiple tools and testing on yourself first. And I've got nothing against public AI tools. I still use them every day. Yeah. It's just the environment where we think our application fits is where that's necessary. I'll still like probably Grok is the top tool that I use at the moment. I use that heaps for iteration. Claude's probably secondary to that. I don't touch ChatGPT, but that's a personal preference.
Why is that a personal preference?
Because I think they don't have the best interests of humanity at heart behind what they're building.
It's an ethical thing from
it's
your
more
perspective.
Of an ethical thing from my perspective.
Right. Good to know. All right, I've got an outgoing tradition I've sort of recently commenced at the end of a question or an interview process.
Okay.
What's a question you'd like to leave for the next person I speak to?
Ooh, how are you using AI in your business?
How are you using AI in your business? I'll definitely share it with them. Josh, thank you very much. I appreciate the conversation.